Hello dear friends, this is Marina and you're watching the weekly horoscope starting from the 25th of September. Now, on the 25th we have an exact square between Mercury and Saturn. And this is considered to be a challenging aspect. You know that squares are usually difficult because there is a disbalance between the harmonies of the signs which are connected. But it becomes even more difficult when one of the planets or two of the planets are malefic planets, or it means that they usually bring some challenges and difficulties. And Saturn is one of those planets. That's why the squares from Saturn are usually more challenging than the other aspects. And of course, this is important for all of us. Mercury is in Virgo, in the last few degrees of Virgo, and Saturn squares Mercury from the last degrees of Sagittarius. And the difference between these signs is that Virgo is related with focusing on the small details, being very precise, being very organized, being very, focused on the present things. And on the other hand, Sagittarius is related with the desire to see things in general, to a little bit focus more on the whole picture. And there might be a little conflict here because Sagittarius is also related with the future, with our perspective and expectations for the future. And when Mercury is squared by Saturn in these specific signs in Virgo and Sagittarius, this aspect can be related with challenges in terms of some plans or our expectations for the future. We may face with some kind of disappointment. Things might be procrastinated, or we may not be so focused. We may lose our attention between the small things and the big things, the difference between Virgo and Sagittarius. So just try to be more precise, don't push yourself too much. Remember that when we have Saturn, especially the squares from Saturn, it means that things are not going to happen fast. So don't rush it, take your time and try to be more patient in everything that you do. Communication can be more difficult during these few days because Mercury is related with all of that. And it may turn out, for example, that you are not so open-minded, you are not ready so much to communicate with others. Sometimes people may prefer to isolate themselves a little bit, or they may avoid sharing their thoughts, their opinions. Very often this square, Mercury and Saturn, is related with some doubts in our decisions. We may feel unconfident, we might be afraid that others will judge us. We might be more critical with others at the same time. We might be, we may expect too much. So just be prepared that everything which includes communication, contacts with people, it might be a little bit more difficult, especially during the first few days of this week. Okay, so the next important event that we have is Mercury, which then will change the sign, the ingression of Mercury in Libra. It happens on the 29th. And well, this is an interesting ingression because previously we had Mercury in Virgo, a sign which is ruled by Mercury. So this was a very strong position for Mercury. And it was good for, being more objective, being more rational, being more concentrated on the small things and the details that require, a lot of efforts or some kind of work. Now that Mercury enters Libra, the situation changes a little bit because Libra is an emotional sign. This sign is ruled by Venus. And this is not exactly what Mercury is all about. That's why our way of thinking can change. For example, we might be more affected, or especially our decisions can be more affected depending on whether we like something or not. Because when Mercury was in Virgo, we are objective. We can say, well, this is black, this is white, and we can make the difference. It doesn't matter how we feel about it. But now that Mercury enters Libra, it's a little bit more different. So it's not only about black and white, but it's also whether you like it or not, and that will make a big difference in terms of your decisions, in terms of how you feel and actually how you communicate with others, how you express your thoughts, what type of decisions you are taking. Okay, so other than that, this ingression Mercury in Libra can be very good for communicating more with people. Libra is an air sign, so after all, this is a good position for Mercury because this is also an air planet. So it's good for communications, for contacts, for connecting with others. Also, another advantage of Mercury in Libra is that usually we can be better in listening to others. So it's not only about saying what you think, saying how you feel, or what are your thoughts or decisions or plans, whatever it is, but it's also about the potential or the opportunity actually to understand the other person. So not only to speak, but also to listen what others have to say. And this is a good ingression also if you want to connect with others, if you need some kind of advices or something like that. This is also a positive position. Now, the other thing which is happening during this week is the opposition between Venus and Neptune. The exact opposition is on the 29th, but of course we can feel the influence a few days before and after that. And these are two emotional planets, of course, Venus and Neptune. That's why this aspect can affect us mostly from an emotional perspective. I mean that our relationships can be affected from this aspect, how we feel, what are our expectations in terms of our love life or our partner. And you know that the oppositions are challenging, and especially when we talk about Neptune, we can expect some unexpected things. The challenging side of Neptune is related with some kind of disappointments. The reason for that is usually because we have too high expectations. We want something which is, for example, perfect, which is very romantic, which is, so like the perfect love, for example. But usually this is something which is impossible here on Earth. And the challenging aspects between Neptune, especially with Venus, is related with facing with reality. It's time to, for example, face with some kind of disappointment, but on the other hand, to see the truth. And it could be related with disappointments in your relationship or in partnerships, or, for example, you may not be so realistic about your expectations. On the other hand, for artists and people who work in the Venus-Neptune area, this can be a positive transit because it makes us more emotional. It can increase our imagination. We might be really inspired. So for work, for creativity, this can turn out to be actually a very productive, very good transit. But in terms of personal decisions and your life, and especially your love life, just be more careful during these few days and try to avoid making some general conclusions about the situation or about somebody else. Now, the next thing, we have a very positive aspect between Mars and Pluto. We have trine between Mars and Pluto, which is exact on the 30th. Of course, we can feel it a few days before, after that. And this is a very harmonious combination because Mars and Pluto are the two planets related with our will. Of course, Mars is related with our personal will, and Pluto is related more with the collective will. But here during this week, we have harmony between these two planets. So it suggests that we might be more empowered. Our will, our personal will, can be increased or strengthened, and all kinds of social activities also can actually stimulate us to increase our personal will. So it's a great transit if you need to feel stronger to do something, if you need to be more confident, also to have more control over your life, over other people. It's especially positive for work and some practical stuff, because the trine is in the earth signs. You know that Mars is in Virgo and Pluto is in Capricorn, so this energy and this strength can be used for work and for some serious things and stable things that you would like to achieve in your life. Okay, and now let's say a few words about the moon, the position of the moon during this week. Now on Monday and Tuesday we have the moon in Sagittarius, which is a great position because Sagittarius is related with more optimism, with receiving some knowledge, even wisdom, traveling, opportunities. So this is a great position. After that, on the 27th, 28th and 29th, which is basically Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, the moon will enter Capricorn. And this is a time when you should focus on some practical things. If you have some obligations to take care of, some responsibilities, some serious work, then the transit of the moon in Capricorn can be actually very supportive for you. Sometimes we may feel a little bit more suppressed on an emotional level. It's not the best transit, but that's why it's better to use it for work, not so much for entertainment. So for example, it's not these days are not good for parties or for entertainment, something like that. Just try to postpone them for the weekend, because during the weekend we have the moon in Aquarius, and it's totally different energy, which is related with the desire to contact with others, to communicate with people, with friends, to exchange your ideas, to be a little bit more open-minded. So try to schedule your work and obligations for Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, and leave the entertainments and the parties for the weekend. Okay, so these were the most important events during this week, and thank you very much for watching this.